This is India Global. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. We turn our attention to what is probably one of the biggest stories breaking today, which is the External Affairs Ministry's strong, sharp condemnation to a security breach that took place in London, where External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar was heckled by Khalistani extremists while leaving Chatham House. A video on your screens right now, viewers, has been circulating on social media showing a man holding the Indian tricolour. He rushed towards Dr. Jaishankar's car as a group of protesters waved pro-Khalistani flags, shouted slogans. Security personnel did intervene, blocked the man, removed him from the scene. But could it have been done earlier? Could it have been done swifter? In response, a statement by the MEA has come in denouncing the incident, calling it provocative by a small group of separatists and extremists, further adding that it deplored the misuse of democratic freedoms by such elements. The ministry also urged the UK government to uphold its diplomatic obligations and to prevent such disruptions from taking place. All right, to understand in greater detail why this is important and the fact that what can India do when it comes to the UK with regard to Khalistani separatists. Joining me on the broadcast is Ambassador Yashwardhan Kumar Sinha, who is the former Indian High Commissioner to the UK. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to me on NDTV. Let me start by
having me.
Let me start by asking you, sir, this is an incident that has happened in the past. More grave instances have happened in the past. As someone who served there in the UK, tell us, how big is the Khalistani extremist problem in the UK?
I think we must see things in perspective. The problem is recurring and it should not be neglected. However, it's a small group of people, a minority of Sikhs and others living there, who create this sort of problem repeatedly. And I must admit, this has happened far too often. And I think the UK government must do something about this so it doesn't recur. However, the larger number, the overwhelming majority of the Indian community, and the Sikhs in particular, are very supportive of better relations between India and the UK. And I remember when I was there, they would support my efforts. We celebrated Guru Gobind Singh Ji's 350th Prakash Parv with great gusto and fervour all over the UK. And I was welcomed into Gurdwaras and presented with saropas. It was actually a wonderful experience. However, incidents like these, and I recall when Prime Minister Modi had visited in 2018, a similar incident happened, and this time at Parliament Square. The extremists had brought down the Indian flag and desecrated it.
Exactly.
And that was not freedom of expression. I argued that. I said this flag was put up by the government of the United Kingdom. It's government property, public property, and surely destruction of public property cannot be considered freedom of expression. And if you recall, they apologized at that point of time. So I think we need certainly to look at this seriously, because this has gone on for far too long. I think
and
there are numerous incidents.
And Ambassador Sinha, you mentioned the other incident, but there's one more. When your successor, I think Ruchi Ghanshyam, was the High Commissioner there, and what really unfolded was shocking when there was these instances of stone pelting and, bottles were being thrown at the Indian High Commission, again by Khalistani extremists. So the problem is there.
15th of August 2019, if I remember correctly, and the window pane of the High Commission was shattered. So this is, in fact, this was an extremely serious incident because, it's the host government's responsibility to provide security, and it's very much there in the Vienna Convention. Both India and the UK are signatories to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. So I think it's something that we must look at very seriously, both the governments. We have such good relations at the highest levels and people to people, and I'm sure if the two governments work together, we can try and resolve this problem, because I think for far too long, I think the West, and in particular some of these Five Eye countries, have been talking about freedom of expression, but that should not be licensed to indulge in violence. And that's what's happened in the UK in the past, and this could have been a very ugly incident, and I think the local police intervened and what stopped what could have perhaps been an ugly incident. So I think we really need to look at this because, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it does impact bilateral relations. There's a groundswell of public opinion which both the governments must be responsive to. So I think we really need to work together to see how we can stamp out such acts of extremism.
Absolutely. And the fact is, it does sour relations, even if, as you pointed out, at the highest level, there is complete agreement in terms of the future potential prospect of the bilateral relationship, but it does impact at the ground level. In your assessment, sir, what more can the UK do and what should be its top 1 or 2 priorities to ensure such stray instances do not happen again?
You see, as far as the UK is concerned, and in India too, we allow, of course, we have different yardsticks. I recall when I was serving, we wouldn't allow demonstrations anywhere near the diplomatic enclave, and demonstrations were stopped at the Timurti Circle or wherever the police decided that. And they were allowed to demonstrate. It's not that they were not allowed to demonstrate, but they weren't allowed to create a nuisance or to indulge in violence. So this is something that the UK must look at. I mean, freedom of expression is all very good and should be allowed. Certainly, they should be allowed to protest or demonstrate, but they should be careful that they do not indulge in violence and do not vitiate the atmosphere and then create problems. I mean, here, clearly, this could have led to an ugly incident. Can you imagine the External Affairs Minister of India being subjected to this sort of thing? So I think that we should not take this lightly, and yet at the same time we must see it in the overall perspective.
All right, Ambassador Sinha, I leave it there. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to me on India Global on a story.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And the bottom line, dear viewers, on this issue is, well, freedom of expression does not give anybody the license, authority to indulge in vandalism or violence. For far too long, Khalistani terrorists, Khalistani separatists have been engaging in acts of violence against India, against Indian authorities and Indian ministers on various geographies, whether it's the UK, whether it's Canada, or whether it's even the US. There has to be a clear-cut message that should come out to the Khalistani terrorists that this cannot continue, this has to stop.